Chag Sameach. One of the sweetest things that we get to do on Shabbat and holidays at PAS is hold services for the ECC and YFE families. There was just one downstairs in the sanctuary. And the best part is when we walk around with the baby Torah, and some of the kids come to the front so that they learn, they kiss the Torah. And then as we go around, they run over to the other side so that they get a second turn. Now you know the strategy if you're looking to do that for tomorrow. But it's so sweet. They just love embracing the Torah. They need to have their second turn to kiss the Torah. As we as a community turn our attention to receiving the Torah today on Shavuot, we have to really understand what it means to actually receive the Torah, to receive our tradition. So we're passing around a source sheet now. For those of you in person, we have a source sheet, a physical source sheet. If you are joining us by live stream, you can view it at pasyn.org/sermon. That will take you directly to the source sheet. So we're going to look at the first text here. On the first day of Shavuot, we always read, as we just did, about the giving of the Torah at Mount Sinai. So the first text I'm going to read, since I have a microphone. Now then, if you will obey me faithfully and keep my covenant, you shall be my treasured possession among all the peoples. Indeed, all the earth is mine, but you shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words that you shall speak to the children of Israel. Moses came and summoned the elders of the people and put before them all that God had commanded him. All those assembled answered as one, saying, "All that God has spoken we will do." And Moses brought back the people's word to God. So as our rabbinic intern, Aidan Pink, mentioned before the Torah reading, we have this tradition. We're told that every single Jew, past, present, and future, including each one of us, including those yet to be born, including those who have converted, including those who will one day convert, every single Jew was there standing at Mount Sinai for this moment of revelation and acceptance. This is the moment when the Jewish people accept Torah as a people, as a whole community. But the question I want us to think about is, what about when each of us accepts the Torah for ourselves as individuals? So the first question is when. When do we accept the Torah for ourselves? The traditional answer is b'nai mitzvah. Right? Bar mitzvah literally means child of the commandments. It's the moment when we become responsible for upholding the commandments in the Torah. So I want to take an informal poll here. Who thinks that b'nai mitzvah is the time when we accept or receive the Torah for ourselves? Raise your hand. If b'nai mitzvah you feel that is the time when we accept Torah for ourselves. Okay, put your hands down. And who thinks that it's some other time? You can think of a different time, not b'nai mitzvah, when you accept Torah for yourselves. We have a lot of people who didn't vote, so. Okay, so if you said b'nai mitzvah, why? We have a couple of microphones, I think. Ross, maybe and Cantor Davis will run around with some microphones. Or Darcy, okay, yes. Donna has an answer here. If you said b'nai mitzvah, why is that the time when we accept Torah for ourselves?
How do you guys manage?
Go ahead. You have the mic.
So I was bat mitzvah, adult bat mitzvah here at Park Avenue. So I was both ready, to accept Torah and to be bat mitzvah. But that
Beautiful.
was in my, late 50s, maybe early 60s. So
Great. So it doesn't necessarily have to be at age 12 or 13, but that is the moment for you when you really felt you accepted it. Anyone else who said, yes, it's b'nai mitzvah, why?
The rabbi told me on my bar mitzvah that I was a member.
Of course, the rabbi told you, and, we listen to every single thing the rabbi tells us, so yeah, good. Anyone else who says b'nai mitzvah? Yeah, Stephen has an answer. Hold on, wait for the mic.
The day I knew when I was becoming a man, I wanted to accept that Torah.
Beautiful. Right, so we tell kids, okay, you're 13 years old, you're a man now, so part of that is accepting the Torah. Great.
I was going to say that as well. Thinking of standing in the bima when a child is bat or bar mitzvah, in our case, we say the shehechianu, and we give them that responsibility then to take care of themselves. And we've given them the gift of all the years of learning, and we hope that they'll embrace it and carry it forward.
Beautiful. Yeah, it's a time of trust, of saying, you've got this now. You're bar or bat mitzvah. You can take it forward from here. Okay, last answer from Brian. Can you pass the mic? So last answer about why bar or bat mitzvah is the time we accept Torah for ourselves.
It's pretty simplistic, but it's the first time you read from the Torah.
Right. You come up for an aliyah for the first time. You're saying Asher Bachar Banu, that we were chosen. Right. It's a moment of coming to the Torah for the first time. Okay. If you said some other time, I'm guessing it's because you feel that bar or bat mitzvah, if you're age 12 or 13 at least, which we know obviously isn't the case for everyone in this room, but it's very young. In the context of our world today, being 12 or 13, to have to take on that sort of responsibility of the entire Torah feels overwhelming. So if you think it's at a different point in your life, not B'nai Mitzvah, raise your hand if you're willing to share with us when you think, and Darcy, if you still have the mic, we'll run around with it again, when you think it happens, if it's not B'nai Mitzvah.
I just want to pick up on what Brian said. For me, the first time I read from the Torah and embraced the Torah was when I read at my daughter's bat mitzvah here. So for me, that was when I knew.
Beautiful, and that's an opportunity to pass the tradition on to the next generation.
I'm going to be a bit of a gadfly and say, no, it's earlier.
Okay.
When a boy, is circumcised and then the firstborn redeemed at Pinyan Ben, or when a girl is named in the congregation, in the synagogue or in the congregation. The Hasidic myth of the knowledge of the Torah being part of every soul, and as the child is born, that knowledge is lost and has to be regained. But within the embrace of every, Kulam B'Sinai, the involvement within Torah of every Jewish child is where I think the Torah is incorporated.
Great. Okay, so if you've looked ahead at the source sheet, you might see a midrash ahead that we'll get to in a bit. But for you, Maxine, it's at 8 days old. Like you are a baby. You can't talk yet. You can't do almost anything yet. But you have already accepted the Torah for yourself. It's something you do before you do most other things. Okay, that's Siona.
I think building on what that woman just said, we have numbers of times in our lives that we return, that we come back to the Torah. I think we lose it, and I think we come back, and we recommit with new knowledge as we go through our lives.
Beautiful, beautiful. There's not just one moment. There are multiple moments we come back to. Okay, we have a couple more hands. Darcy, here, come up to the front.
Maxine had discussed what I was going to say. I do agree when the baby is born, whether it's a girl or boy, and as an agent, they're given their name, and they're then live a Jewish life at that point. So
Great.
So
All right, the
agree
moment
with
a baby is born. Great. Okay.
And they get it.
I think Howard had an answer, Darcy, and we'll take, and then Joan, and maybe those will be our last two.
Accepting Torah is a continuous process that begins at birth and continues for the rest of your life. And bar or bat mitzvah, that's when the community recognizes you as part of the community. But Torah is something that starts at birth and continues for the rest of your life.
Great. So there's no moment. It's every day. Every moment of every day you have to be accepting Torah. Okay, Joan.
It's completely subjective, but if you are fortunate enough to have grown up in a family environment where this is an important value, you grow up with it from the time you're very, very little. as a responsibility for oneself. However, when it came to my bat mitzvah, then I felt tremendous responsibility from my then rabbi for not just me, but for everybody around me.
Nice.
And so it was a deepening of it. Later on, I think during COVID, I started to supply the second paragraph in the Amidah about recognizing God's existence. It was very powerful because
Beautiful.
it was such a conscious, oh, that's new to me.
Nice. COVID is such an interesting example. It's a moment when we were all siloed. We were all at home. We couldn't really rely on other people to make Jewish community for us. We had to do it for ourselves. So what I hear you saying is one of the many moments in our lives when we accept Torah is when we have to sort of make Jewish choices for ourselves. For some people, that's going to college and figuring out what their life is going to look like in college. For some people, it's during COVID, figuring out how am I going to create a Jewish home for myself here, even without being able to lean on the rest of the community. Nice. I know there are some more answers. All right, Les, you have the mic. This is really the last one.
Last one. I'm changing my vote, by the way.
Okay.
I voted for bar mitzvah, but I would say is probably by the numbers, that is the time. However, and it's kind of been said already, but in all of our lives, maybe there's a moment where we accept Torah that not necessarily by the numbers moment.
Great. Right. Everyone sort of has their moment of having to make a Jewish choice or something. Great. So I want to think about, I want to return to the answer, I think, now I'm forgetting who said it, but somebody talked about this moment of choosing Judaism, right? We talked about it with B'nai Mitzvah, choosing to accept Torah for ourselves, but I'm actually surprised that no one said converting to Judaism, that's a moment of accepting Torah for ourselves, especially someone converting as an adult, just like Ruth, whose story we read today, right? Her husband dies, she makes this brave choice to remain with her Jewish mother-in-law instead of going back home to her Moabite community. So let's look at text 2. This is the second text here from Ruth. This is a very short excerpt from the first chapter that Cantor Davis read earlier. Ruth clung to her mother-in-law. So Naomi said, "See, your sister-in-law has returned to her people and her gods. Go follow your sister-in-law." But Ruth replied, "Do not urge me to leave you, to turn back and not follow you. For wherever you go, I will go. Wherever you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. Thus and more may God do to me if anything but death parts me from you." So as we said earlier, this is the archetypal story of conversion. But it's not just about conversion. It's about a choice to attach oneself to the Jewish people. It's this moment of personal loyalty to her mother-in-law, communal loyalty to the Jewish people, and faith, all tied together. And I want to return to one other comment that I think someone did talk about. We talked about your child's bar bat mitzvah, reading Torah at your child's bar bat mitzvah, passing that tradition on to somebody else. So I think you have to really know that something is important to you in order to communicate that importance to someone else. Right? You have to know that Torah is something that you want to accept and receive in order to know that it's something worthy of sharing with somebody else, whether it's the next generation at a bar mitzvah, whether it's a friend, whether it's a colleague, a neighbor. It doesn't really matter who you're sharing it with. It reinforces it for yourself. I've been thinking a lot about this for myself lately as I get closer and closer to having a baby, God willing, in a couple of months, and I think about one day teaching him to say hamotzi and eat challah, or to cover his eyes and say the Shema. I'll admit that part of why this question is on my mind about how and when we receive Torah for ourselves is my own excitement about the future and watching my child receive Torah for himself at each stage of his life, and continuing to receive Torah myself in the process of passing it on to him, to the next generation. So we've identified a number of possible moments here. And what do these moments all have in common? All of these moments of accepting and receiving Torah, they're active. You have to take an active role. Shavuot is known as Zman Matan Torah, the time of the giving of the Torah. It's communal. It's a moment when the Torah was offered to us, and we as a full community accepted it. But what about Mikabel Torah, receiving the Torah? Because giving isn't really helpful if we aren't standing at the base of Mount Sinai, or really at our B'nai Mitzvah, or our COVID rooms, or our college dorm rooms, or babies' delivery rooms, or child's B'nai Mitzvah, with arms open, ready to receive actively. In fact, there's a midrash that Maxine brought up earlier, that since we all collectively received the Torah at Mount Sinai, we all already have it within us before we are even born. So let's look at the next text here. This is the midrash, I think, that Maxine is referring to. The Holy Blessed One would summon the angel in charge of souls and say to him, "Bring me a certain soul which is in the Garden of Eden, whose name is so-and-so, and whose form is such and such." All the souls that would exist in the future were fashioned with the first man, and they will exist to the end of the world. All of them were created on the 6th day of creation. I was tender and alone, and no one was with me in my mother's womb. Then the angel instructed me and told me, "Take my words to heart, keep my commandments, and it shall be as described above." The Holy Blessed One then warned him concerning everything that would transpire. And the angel led him about from morning until evening. The angel showed him where he would die and where he would be buried. Then he led him about and walked with him through the world, showing him the righteous and the wicked and everything else. In the evening he brought him back to his mother's womb. When at last the time arrives for his entrance into the world, the angel comes to him and says, "At a certain hour your time will come to enter the light of the world." He pleads with him, saying, "Why do you wish me to go out into the light of the world?" The angel replies, "You know, my son, that you were formed against your will. Against your will you will be born, against your will you will die, and against your will you are destined to give an accounting before the King of Kings, the Holy Blessed One." Nevertheless, he remained unwilling to leave, and so the angel struck him with the candle that was burning at his head. Thereupon he went out into the light of the world, though against his will. Upon going out, the infant forgot everything he had witnessed and everything he knew. Why does the child cry out on leaving his mother's womb? Because the place wherein he had been at rest and at ease was irretrievable, and because of the condition of the world into which he must enter. I think this is such a fascinating midrash. This was written around 500 to 800 CE, and it's amazing to think about the imagination at that time of what was going on before birth. But the idea is that every piece of Torah knowledge, all the wisdom of our ancestors, the answer to every Jewish question, whether asked or yet to be asked, is all taught to us before we're born. It's part of our souls. And just before we're born, we're taught that an angel shushes us like this, which is how we end up with this tiny little indent called the philtrum above the mouth. It's the physical marker of the Torah within us, hidden, dormant, a gift we hold the power to open at any moment. And Ruth, too, had Torah within her all along. Right? That's what we believe about those who have converted to Judaism. She had to make a choice to connect herself to it. But once she did, it was revealed to be within her from birth. Aviva Zornberg, who's a Scottish Torah scholar, writes about the repeating pattern of the verb lashuv, to return, in the first chapter of the book of Ruth. This is the final text on the source sheet that I'm summarizing for you. It's odd to think about Ruth's journey to Judaism as a return, because she was not born Jewish, when, as Zornberg puts it, she wants to attach herself to a past that's not hers. But in fact, it is hers. As she ventures into the unknown, a new religion, a new community, a new family, a new life, she returns to the Torah within her. The Torah that has been there within her soul since before she was born into this world, since the moment her soul stood with each one of us at Mount Sinai receiving the Torah. For Ruth, it was the unknown, and yet the profoundly known. For us too. The only question is when and how we choose to access it. This is a question we can and should ask ourselves all the time, especially on Shavuot. But this year, on this Shavuot, a year when people have been seeking to define Judaism from the outside, this year we have to define ourselves from the inside. And when I say inside, I mean that in two ways. Inside of our community, meaning that we are the ones who self-define what it means to be Jewish, and inside of ourselves, like Ruth, and like every Jew who stood shoulder to shoulder with us at Mount Sinai. We have the power to reach inwards, to access the Torah that has always been deep within each of our souls. In the face of those who seek to define us from without, we have the power to accept and receive and celebrate the gift of Jewish life and tradition we've always carried within us. Chag Sameach.